All right, folks, we're gonna do a indoor. I got my dogs out here. You do a wintertime air layer and show you why you're going to use this tree as a good candidate. So this is a Cosme Manyo cutting that I got last year. It's pretty expensive cutting at the time. It's still not that cheap. Anyway, I grafted it to a tree that I had in my indoor greenhouse. And the tree was CDD Gegantina, and it had some branching, and this was the first graft that I did, and I use a banana graft, so you can look that up. It's probably one of the easier grafts. You're essentially taking the cutting or the branch, making a cut, peeling back and cutting down the sides, 4 slits, peeling the bark down, and then cutting off the inner part, the white. And then you're taking your scion, your target, which was this here, and you're scraping it off and then wrapping up those 4 flaps and then tying it together, and you get a graft that way. So pretty easy. There's more technical stuff to lining up the cambium layers and all that I, to be honest, really just went ahead and did it kind of like a caveman, and it worked. So this was the first graft I did. But the tree that I had in the greenhouse, the grow tent at the time, over the winter, had multiple branches, and the branch that I chose was a little lower. So anyway, the graft did not grow very much. And go on, doggies, go on, get. So anyway, I air layered the graft off of the tree in the summer, this past summer, and you can see the result here. You can see this is the cutting from last year, and it just had 2 nodes that did not grow very much at all. And so I put it into this pot here. This was mid to late summer, and it grew very slowly. So this winter I brought this inside the grow tent and started getting it to grow, and it looks like it's starting to grow better with its own roots and doesn't have to share with the rest of the tree. So when you do a graft, as I've learned, you want to put the graft towards the top of whatever tree you're doing. So if you have a little 1 gallon and then you have some rootstock like this, you know, your graft is going to be above that. So whatever's above is going to get the energy. You have multiple branches and you graft on the lower branch like I did, you're going to get much slower growth. So that's what happened, and so I'm correcting that this year. But that's a learning opportunity. So what I'm going to do now is prepare this tree, take off last year's parafilm. So basically I'm going to make an air layer right here and then cut this off probably in a couple of months, hopefully. And then I'm going to take this other branch over here and straighten out the tree with this, and then I'll have another then I'll have a Cosme Manyo on its own roots, and then a grafted onto CDD Gegantina on this other one. So the reason I grafted the cutting to begin with, number 1 was to try it. Number 2 was it was a pretty expensive cutting. So sometimes you don't want to risk a $50 cutting. For as many as I had that died last year, this actually saved it. So what we're going to want to do is I'm going to score this right here. I'm going to figure out where this little rooting ball is going to go. So it's going to sit below this little node point right on the ground, and then it won't slide around. If I put it up here, it could move and slide around and damage the roots. So I'm going to put it right below this, and that's easy. So now all I have to do is prepare the area, and what I'm doing is cutting opposite sides, scoring the bark until I see the brown, lime green, and then down to the yellow on the inside. Okay, let's get a closer look at that. All right, so now I'm going to get some ProMix HP, put it in here, and squeeze it out really well like I'm doing rooting cuttings, and put that on here. All right, so I'm going to put some Clone-X on the part where I scored, and I'm just going to dip my finger in here. A lot of people say, well, here, actually, I can do this. Pour some out. I'm just applying it to where I scored it, and all around the outside as well is probably just as good idea. Okay, I'm going to put the root ball on here. So I put the rooting ball over the scored area. Hopefully that's where the roots come out of. And then I'm going to put zip ties. So these have a little snap on. This one doesn't seem to be catching. Might be broken a little bit because I've reused these clear rooting balls. Got a couple more zip ties. There's 4 spots where you can zip tie these in. So I'm going to cut the zip ties, because I'm going to wrap this rooting ball. Alright, so the rooting ball has some air that can get to the top and then the sides and the bottom, but to maintain moisture, you really have to use a saran around it. Maintains the moisture, and that's what's going to cause it to start to root. Okay, so the moisture is going to be contained by the saran wrap that goes around this. I use a clear rooting ball because obviously you can see when the roots are in there. And you want to get the roots to come all the way down both sides. That's the best way to do it. Sometimes when you put the rooting ball on, it takes a good while to get those roots, and then your growth here is really long, so that can be a little tricky. The other thing you want to do is, well, this is what I do. A little aluminum foil to cover. Some people say the roots don't like the lights. That may be true. A lot of times they grow just fine. So it's a preventive measure, can't hurt. And the foil actually helps squeeze the top here so you can keep the moisture in. And that's what you really want to do, is retain the moisture. So again, why did I do this? This was a cutting that was grafted onto CDD Gegantina, and so now I have two of those nodes that started leafing out very slowly over the year, over the course of this past growing season, and brought this plant inside on the rootstock and got it to grow a little bit. It was just, hadn't had much time to grow at all, so I want to give a little head start for this coming season. And now that I have these two nodes growing out, I'm going to air layer one off, and then that will be Cosme Manyo on its own roots, and then the other one will be on CDD Gegantina, and then I'll have two trees. And I have the time, have the space. This will take probably a couple of months. You get roots in the summertime. You get them about 3 weeks. You can start to see the roots. And the grow tent, haven't really timed it, but it's taken a lot longer, so we'll see how it goes the rest of the year. I keep the grow tent just kind of ambient temperature indoors, so it's below 74, it's below 72 probably, even with the lights on. It's not super warm in there, so the plants aren't growing as fast, which is a good thing, because in the grow tent I just want some growth. I don't want the trees outgrow. They get 5 foot tall real quick. So you really take your time. You can propagate a lot of trees like this and achieve your objectives. The way this is growing with 2 branches, I'd have to cut one so I could get one central leader. That's the way I like to grow my fig trees. This way I can double my fig trees pretty easily. You know, there's another method, a sandwich bagging method, where you fill up a quart sandwich bag with that Pro Mix, slice it down the middle and wrap. You could do that. I'm finding that method where the bag wraps, it's kind of tricky, and I've had a couple of failures as a result of that. I tend to take my air layers off probably quicker than I should, and so the roots are not as well established in those sandwich baggy methods. So this I found to be perfect for me, because I can see the roots and they wrap around nicely, and I just pop off the zip ties and the roots just stay nice and clinging to the root ball. So, and once you cut it off and repot it, you're going to want to keep it in very low, well, somewhat low light for maybe a week or so. And if the leaves droop, they should not droop after, you know, within 12 hours. If they're still drooping after that, it's not a good thing. You probably took it too early, or it's in shock. But when they're going to take, the leaves are turgid like this 5-6 hours later. That's what I'm finding for a good air layer. So there's not too much more to it than that. You got to experiment, figure out what works for you. And I've killed a few air layers, so I know when I'm taking them too early, and kind of starting to learn how to be a little more patient and letting them sit on there and take off. All right, if you have any other questions, put them in the comments, and like and subscribe, and I'll get some more videos and show you how to propagate some great fig trees. This is Cosme Manyo, and now I'm going to have 2. Thanks.